afternoon. By popular demand and by special request from Mr. Chris Phillips from the Boats and Engines YouTube channel, it's time for us to cover another Roger Moore James Bond film. This time we're looking at the finest work of Christopher Lee on the Bond series, or the only work of Christopher Lee on the Bond series, The Man with the Golden Gun.
Second to none, the man with the golden gun. Lurking in some darkened doorway, or crouched on a rooftop somewhere. In the next room of this very one, the man with the golden gun. Love is required whenever he's hired. It comes just before the kill. No one can catch him, no hitman can match him for his $1 million skill. One golden shot means another poor victim has come to a glittering end. For a price he'll erase anyone, the man with the golden gun. His eye may be on you or me. Who will he bang? We shall see. Love is required whenever he's hired. It comes just before the kill. No one can catch him, no hitman can match him for his $1 million skill. One golden shot means another poor victim has come to a glittering end. If you want to get rid of someone, the man with a golden gun will get it done. He'll shoot anyone with his golden gun.
So The Man with the Golden Gun was an unfinished James Bond novel that was published after the death of Ian Fleming in the mid-1960s. The film came about after quite a while in development, because in 1968, when they were looking at going after You Only Live Twice, they did think about filming Man with the Golden Gun in I think another part of Southeast Asia, I think Cambodia actually, but because there was an uprising around that time, it didn't work out for them. So eventually the film started being made in 1973 with Roger Moore. Roger Moore had cemented himself in Live and Let Die, which I've already covered on this channel, and they actually started filming Man with the Golden Gun pretty much immediately after Live and Let Die had been released. I think they started filming in about November 1973. The film was shot in this country, at Pinewood Studios and Bovington Airfield, where actually I've been a couple of times. That's where the Drift Limits track is now, funnily enough, where I drove a Subaru Impreza and a Mitsubishi Evo in 2018. It was also filmed in Macau and Hong Kong and Thailand. It's set partly also in Beirut, but they did the old Saint trick with that, which is they used a standing set with a street scene that you could see, and they never actually had any filming in Lebanon. The plot of the film is a little bit different from the book of the Man with the Golden Gun, It is partly concerned with the energy crisis that was taking place at the time, and Britain was still very much suffering the effects of it in December 1974 when the film was released. The Silent Agitator, which is the sort of MacGuffin of the film, that is something that Bond is asked to actually find, and his dual mission as well is that he's been sent a bullet with his number on it by Scaramanga, who's known for assassinating people using golden bullets from a golden gun. Christopher Lee stars as Scaramanga. He was actually a step cousin of Ian Fleming himself, which is really interesting. He was initially going to be considered for Dr. No, but Ian Fleming forgot to actually ask producers to cast him, so they'd already had Joseph Wiseman in already, and perhaps we'll talk about Dr. No in another episode. His henchman is Knick-Knack, played by a half American, half French. No, sorry, he's not half American, half French. He's half French, half English, but he lived in America a lot of his life. Hervé Villechaize, if I got that right, who suffered from dwarfism. He is a very kind of Fleming-esque henchman. Fleming loved casting people with things like dwarfism and other physical disabilities for some reason. It's not very politically correct, but Knick-Knack is just quite appropriate for the film that he's in. It's a little bit comic and things, and a little bit silly, and he sort of fits in quite well. The two main Bond girls in Man with a Golden Gun are Britt Ekland as Mary Goodnight and Maud Adams as Andrea Anders, both Swedish ladies, both former models, and for some stupid reason they decided to have Britt Ekland prancing around in a bikini for most of the second half of the film. I couldn't possibly, ask why they did that. Who knows? Anyway, they do have some cars in The Man with a Golden Gun. There is a particular stunt in The Man with a Golden Gun, but it's very, very famous. It certainly does stand out quite a lot. The music in Man for Golden Gun was composed by John Barry. The title song was sung by Lulu, and the lyrics are by Don Black. A lot of people have criticised the score and the title song in total. John Barry was under a lot of pressure to actually write the music very quickly, but I think it's pretty good, honestly. I'm not sure it's as bad as people say it is. I mean, we are talking about Bond films now, and they generally have quite a sort of high bar when it comes to films like music and special effects. Special effects by Derek Meddings and John Steers, two veterans of the Bond series, and Derek Meddings before that, a lot of Jerry Anderson productions that he worked on. And the film's really not that bad. In my opinion, it's still a very good film. It just maybe isn't as good as a lot of the other Bond films that have come before or since. So the 1970s saw an interesting trend in the three films that Guy Hamilton directed for the Bond series at that time. Diamonds Are Forever was sponsored by Ford, Live and Let Die was sponsored by Chevrolet, and Man with the Golden Gun was sponsored by American Motors, or AMC. One of the reasons for this is because the producers saw what was called the Astro Spiral stunt as part of the, let's get this right here, the All-American Thrill Show. The chap who actually performed that very famous stunt in an AMC Hornet X hatchback was a gentleman by the name of Bumps Willett, who had been part of the stunt show, and they used American Motors cars in that show. It was found after having done a computer simulation on, let's read this here properly, the Cornell Aeronautical Laboratory computer in America, that the car that was most suitable for doing this type of stunt was a very similar car to the one that Bumps Willett had been using in his show, the AMC Hornet. And so he did this himself. He said that he'd be paid extra if he do it in one take, which he did. And they modified the car for him to sit in the middle. It is an amazing stunt. The slide whistle effect that John Barry put over the top of it, he definitely regretted, and I think it's a very stupid idea. That's not really a surprise. Everybody says that, and it's true. But the actual thing itself, he did it perfectly. The only thing that happened was when the car landed, the windscreen cracked. In order to get the best weight distribution, he put the seat in the middle of the car as opposed to the left or right-hand side, which yes, is just totally spectacular. It's really, really good. As I said, the car that stunt gets performed in is his 1974 AMC Hornet X hatchback, and Bond steals the car from an AMC showroom in Bangkok with Sheriff Pepper from the previous film in tow, which makes no sense in the storyline whatsoever. I don't know if AMC actually sold cars in Thailand at the time. Please feel free to tell me in the comments. Perhaps they did, perhaps they didn't. I've heard different things about this. And why would Sheriff Pepper, who's from Louisiana, be looking at a car in Thailand when he can just go home and have a look at one in a showroom in America? Narratively, it doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all for him to be in a film, to be honest. And the sort of kung fu element that there was very much part of the zeitgeist, as Bruce Lee had died the year before, and so they maybe felt they had to put that in. I don't know. But Scaramanga's car is also an AMC, and this one has some wings to make it into an aeroplane. The model that's actually based on is an earlier design that used a Ford Pinto as the car that was part of the plane, and that didn't go very well because that crashed and killed the people inside it at some stage. This didn't obviously crash because it didn't really fly. It just kind of was made to look like it did, and there was a remote control car that John Steers actually designed. And the sequence where the car comes out of a hangar and takes off was filmed at Bovington Airfield in Hertfordshire. Nobody seems to complain about it, and that's quite well masked actually, with some just vegetation that looks like it's from Asia. The Matador Coupe itself is a 74 model. It's a weird special edition called the Brougham Oleg Cassini. Oleg Cassini was some kind of chap who did famous things, apparently. I never heard of him myself. The car apparently wore registration PJE 295R at some point in its life, and is actually on display in America at the moment because the Cars of the Stars Museum in Kazakh, where it was displayed in the 2000s, was closed about 10 years ago, so it had to go somewhere. I don't know whether that's the original car because that's a 1977 plate, and it says year of manufacture on the DVLA 1976, so either someone's made an error or it's just a car that looks like the one from the film. I don't really know. The Thai police also use AMC Matador police cars, although they're the saloon version and they don't look anything like the coupe. There's not much in common, I think, between those two designs. Maybe underneath the same, I don't really know. Scaramanga's car has a massive, massive engine in it. I think it's a 6-litre engine, actually, which is pretty remarkable. Wouldn't be surprised if those police cars, though, had the 4-litre straight 6, which was in things like the Jeep Cherokee XJ until 2001. Lieutenant Hip, who's another one of the main characters in the film, he is actually in quite a lot of it. He's trying to help Bond, but does some very stupid things, such as driving away with his nieces in the car and without Bond when Bond's trying to escape from a karate school that he's been taken to under duress. And his car is a 1968 Mercedes-Benz 220D. There's been a lot of debate on the internet as to what model of W115 or 4 that is, and it is, I think, a 220D, although there were two different cars because the film was shot in two different places where it was supposed to be the same car, so There is one car in Thailand, one car in Hong Kong, but both white Mercedes W114s or 115s of that era. The other main car that's used in Man in the Golden Gun is used in a stunt during the chase, where Bond is trying to chase Scaramanga, the police chasing him. It's a 1955 Chevrolet 210, and it's a pretty spectacular stunt. I mean, you know, the other main stunt of the chase is coming later, but you know, it'll do, and it gets smashed up nicely at I think like a market in Bangkok. Other cars used in The Man in the Golden Gun are a 1973 MGB driven by Britt Ekland as Mary Goodnight. Another Mercedes-Benz W11405. We think this is W115, but it's used in Hong Kong in the dark. You can't see any trim badges or anything, so yeah, who knows? It's of that particular generation from 1969. There's also a 1967 Land Rover Series 2 110-inch station wagon used by the Hong Kong police. It's a little bit like the one from Never Live Twice, but I think that's a bit of a slightly earlier model, actually, that one. The Beirut scenes have a car in them, which is a Fiat 132S taxi, although that's just in the backlot at Pilot Studio, so I don't think it counts particularly. There's not much to see of that car, really. All I know it's an early Fiat 132. The taxi that Bond tries to take in Hong Kong before being picked up by Mary Goodnight in the MGB is a 1971 Datsun 200C. Now that's similar to a Datsun Cedric. It looks a bit like a Toyota Crown, but it's not. It is a Datsun. And some of them at the time from Hong Kong used to come over from Japan after only a couple of years, because the Japanese don't really like cars that are a few years old very often. Another car used in Hong Kong, where there's a plot point about the registration AU603, is a fleet of Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 1s belonging to the Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong, which is, again, a plot point in the film. The particular one that Bond is interested in is AU603, although you see different registrations used on them. They have the red plates with white lettering. I think at the time in Hong Kong they had red plates for cars that were used for hire purposes, like, you know, the one outside the hotel. The car that Scaramanga and Knick-Knack use in Hong Kong is not the AMC Matador Coupe. It's actually a Toyota Celica. It's a 73 model, which makes sense because that's when some of the scenes in Hong Kong were filmed. The bit on the harbour with the Princess Elizabeth, the Queen Elizabeth ship that's half sunk, that's another plot point. That was filmed in late 1973. All in all, there's not a lot of cars in Man from the Golden Gun. Some of them are quite interesting. There's a lot of background cars as well, and it shows the variety of traffic that was in Thailand at the time. I'm not going to cover those here, otherwise this video would be far too long. You know, if it's not too long already. So then, is The Man with the Golden Gun worth watching in 2020? Well, I personally am pleasantly surprised by the film. I like Christopher Lee. I like the music in the film. Roger Moore, I'm not sure it's his best performance, and Britt Ekland's certainly not her best performance. But the film does have a certain kind of charm to it. It maybe was a bit rushed. It maybe doesn't quite have the same feel to it as the next film, which is A Spy Who Loved Me, which undoubtedly is better. And it's a shame that Harry Saltzman had to sell his half of the Ian Productions and Danjak LLC businesses to actually fund some failed ventures of his own. And this is the last film in the Bond series that he actually worked on. So it didn't do as well as Live and Let Die, and it was critically panned at the time. and it's not, I'd say, kind of the best one ever. When I was read Secret Service, that's a very, very good film. Live and Let Die is pretty good, but it's not my favourite. This is just somewhere in the middle. There's far worse Bond films out there, and when we get to possibly right down to the Pierce Brosnan era, then there's much worse stuff out there than this. But anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment below. I'll also put links to On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Live and Let Die in the description below. Don't forget to visit my Facebook page, facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting, and also my Instagram page, instagram.com/Lloyd_Vehicle_Consulting. Thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching.